Right,
Hey.
Samir, you can.
Yep. So let
Take it
me
away.
kick off and we'll continue. So thank you, everyone. Welcome to Hands-On Hour, brought to you by Canadian Cloud Community. Thank you so much for being here tonight. My name is Samir, and I'm here with my friend and my co-host, Mohammed. Tonight is a special night. This is very first episode of our Hands-On Hour. Before we jump in, let me quickly tell you what makes this series different. Hands-On Hour is not your typical webinar. There is no slide deck full of theory. Every session is live, hands-on demonstration inside real tools and real environments. It might not be production, as I said, but it's going to be mostly demo and showing different things and working together. So you will leave with actionable steps you can take back your own tenant or production and try something new very next day. And we want your question throughout. So this is like a conversation, not a lecture. Feel free to post your question on a chat session, and we'll try to address them as we go. We are running Hands-On Hour every first week of a month around similar time, but we'll keep posting on a LinkedIn as we go. So please mark your calendars, and you have standing appointment with us as we go. All right. So 2 quick housekeeping items. This session is being recorded and will be published on a Canadian Cloud Community YouTube channel. So if you have a question regarding how you're going to share with us, stay tuned. We'll put a post again on a LinkedIn when this is published on a YouTube channel. All right. And please use the chat for a question throughout, as I said, and I'll be happy to answer. All right. So let's get to the good stuff. And before I start talking more, I just want to make sure you guys are able to hear me and able to see as well. Please just say thumbs up or something so that I know there's no audio issue. Perfect. All right, good. All right, so we could not have picked a better person to this. Our very first featured speaker is renowned expert in digital workplace governance and data protection. She has helped organizations across the globe implementing robust information protection strategies using Microsoft ecosystem. She is community leader and trusted voice in Microsoft 365 space. Please join me welcoming Joanne. Hey, Joanne, thanks for joining us today.
Hello, and thank you so much for inviting me. I'm honored to be the first guest on your Hands-On Hour. I think that's fantastic. And we're starting with Purview, which I'm like really stoked about. So I am going to share my screen. I don't have many slides. This is almost entirely live demo, which when you're talking about Purview takes a little bit of courage, I have to say, because things just kind of take a while to bake in the back end. But I've kind of pre-baked some things, if you will, like a cooking show, to helpfully show you end to end on this fairly big topic. We're talking about optical character recognition, or OCR, and how you can use OCR in some of the Purview solutions. So that's the topic today. A little bit about me. I think Samir already went over that, so let's skip that. This is what I'm demoing today. I'm going to, I guess, build a classifier for a legal case ID. I had to pick something to look for across my tenant. So imagine I'm a legal firm or a legal department in a larger firm, and we have some unique identifier that is sensitive and we care about. For the next hour, we're going to call that the legal case ID. So that's kind of step one. Then we're going to move into OCR, the setup for that, the costs, what that actually looks like on the front end when end users are uploading things that need to be OCR'd, and then what that looks like on the back end for the billing piece, some metadata you can look in, and I've got some tools you can use, download open source tools that I will share a link for at the end of this. to see what's kind of going on behind the scenes. Then once you've got data classified, then that opens up a whole bunch of different purview capabilities: auto-applying sensitivity labels, auto-applying retention labels, data loss prevention actions, all really good things to be able to use that classified data for, including OCR content. And then a little bit about on-demand classification at the end and why you might need this. So this is a lot of big topics. Each one of these on its own, particularly the bottom four, could probably take an hour. But I'm not going to go into the details on each one of these. I feel, though, that I'm going to kind of cover enough for you to piece it all together. What I find my customers struggle with is knowing, okay, so we've OCR'd something. What can I do with that? So that's what I want to show you if you think this would be value add for your organization. So let's start with what can be OCR'd. We're talking about all kinds of things. We're talking about handwritten notes, scanned receipts that are scanned either in an image format like a PNG or JPEG, scanned forms. You see a Canadian tax form up in the top left. That could be in a PDF. It could be in a image file. You might have embedded images inside an Office doc on the bottom right side in a Word document. Well, if you need to get inside the content of that image, it needs to be OCR'd. Receipts, all kinds of things. So the value in this is detecting the sensitive content that might be living in there, because sensitive content lives everywhere, particularly the one on the top right corner, forms. Lots of companies have scan forms that come into them and stored in SharePoint, and you're kind of blind to what's in there unless you have some capability to scan that text. So we're going to look at, I've just taken an example of a receipt. And I'm going to build a custom classifier for what I'm calling a legal case ID. So I just made this up, but I, just relate this to a scenario in your own organization. It's got a structure, and I need to kind of define what that structure is. So I'm going to use a regular expression to define this. It's got the characters LM dash followed by a jurisdiction. So I'm Canadian, so I'm picking on the Canadian provinces here, dash a year, dash a sequential ID. So the regular expression I've come up with there, this is something actually that any Gen AI tool is pretty darn good at generating. It's got some holes, which you will see. This is not a robust enough regular expression, but it gets us fairly far down to for the demo. In addition to a match on that regular expression, so you can see on the image I have on the right-hand side, I've circled in red an example of that image, LM-SK- whatever. That would be a match on that regular expression. But in addition to that, I want to also look for a keyword, because maybe that on its own isn't really enough for me to be fairly confident that this is a legal case ID. So I'm looking for other words around that regular expression. So it's the combination of those things I'm going to look for. So I'm going to show how I've pre-built this in a tenant, but I'm going to show you how to build it from scratch. Because I know I will be asked, what I'm going to show you today requires certain pay-as-you-go features, setup rather, and licensing. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can snip this, reach out to your customer to know definitively what you need. But most of the things I'm going to demonstrate on the Purview automation side require E5 or the Purview add-on for that capability. Okay, enough of slides. Let's go into a live demo. So I'm in, you can see my Purview. Yes?
Yep.
Okay, I'm in Purview in information protection, and I'm under the classifiers section. Classifiers are the foundation for absolutely everything that you can lay a purview control on top of. Many different kinds of classifiers are out there. Microsoft provides a bunch, but you can also build your own. So for this case, and today, we're going to build our own. And I'm going to build a certain type of classifier called a sensitive information type. So I'm going to create this. This is another reason why it's very risky doing a Purview demo, is because Purview is quite slow, as you will see. Okay, so I'm going to do demo. A good description goes here. Okay, so I have to create a pattern. A pattern, I'm going to add a regular expression. Confidence levels are really important when it comes to sensitive information types. There's 3 confidence levels, low, medium, and high. So I'm going to do a high confidence with a regular expression and one of those matching keywords. I'm going to do a medium confidence if all I can find is a match in a regular expression, and I'm not going to do a low confidence. You use that on the consumption side when you're doing a DLP policy or applying a sensitivity label. Maybe you only want to apply a sensitivity label if something is a high confidence match. That's where, so you define it in the sensitive information type definition, and then you consume it on the Purview side. Okay, so I'm going to put in my regular expression from that slide I showed. I've given it an ID, demo, legal case ID. Oh, actually, I want to do a word match here. And by that, I mean, I want to look for this as a kind of a unique word within the file. So if it's got extra characters at the end, it is going to not be a match. Okay, so I'll do a word match. You get less false positives if you do that. So I'm just going to click done. In addition to that, I want to add those keywords. So that's what Microsoft calls a supporting element. So I'm going to add a keyword list. If you had a whole bunch of keywords, you would add a keyword dictionary. You could add another regular expression if you want. I mean, you can get very robust here. So I'm just going to add a list of keywords. Insensitive, I don't care what case it is. I've got to give it an ID, demo, legal keywords, and click done. Okay, so that's high confidence and create. That's high confidence. I could create another pattern for medium confidence and add in the ID of the other one. And I can't remember what it was, but I don't have to re-enter the regular expression. If I remembered what I put in as the ID, I could just re-add that. Okay, so I can add a medium, a high confidence, and a medium confidence. And the medium confidence, all I would put in would be the regular expression. I wouldn't do any other supporting elements. Okay, and click next. I'm going to recommend a high confidence level when I'm using this in other Purview policies. And that's it. Okay, so I'm actually going to cancel this because we don't have time for this to percolate through the system. So I'm just going to confirm. And what I want to show you is the one I built about 10 days ago. So I called it legal case ID. I'm just going to edit it so you can see I've got 2 patterns, one for high confidence, exactly what I just did, and one for medium confidence that's just the regular expression. What you can do with this, and what is a very important part of understanding your data and getting these classifiers right, which is really important, is testing them. So if I were to open up this, I can test a file at a time what the accuracy of my classifier is. Okay, So I can upload a file, and I have got two files here. I've got a medium confidence one, PDF, so I'm just going to upload that. And I'm going to hit test. So it's using that regular expression and that keyword list, and it's trying to figure out how confident is it based on my definition that it found a match. So it's found a low match. So how this works is if it's medium, it's going to pass both the low and the medium test, even though I didn't even have a low confidence level defined. If it's high, it's going to do a match on low, medium, and high. So it's detected a match on the regular expression, but there was no keyword that was near it. So it's only a medium confidence file. So I'm happy with that. I'm actually going to go back to file and show you that file. If I open up this PDF, you can see it has a match. By the way, this is just printed, so it's OCRing this. It has a match in the regular expression, and there's no other matching keyword on there, so it is medium confidence. So now if I go back to Purview and I test that other high confidence file, this guy, so if I just expand this, you can see legal matter was one of the keywords, and there's the regular expression. So if I open up that one and test it, I should see a match on low, medium, and high for this file, which I have. You can see both the regular expression and the supporting elements. Now, I'm going to move on, but in the real world, you have to test these classifiers with real data and be fairly intense about getting this right. Because once you get this right, it leads to the ability to use a whole bunch of other features in a trustworthy manner. If you're not confident in how accurate this is, everything else kind of falls to the side. Okay, so we've got that. Just want to make sure. Okay, so we've got legal case ID defined. So the next thing we want to do is set up OCR. Actually, another thing I want to show you. There is a website of all of the classifiers. There's a bunch for Canada only, and you will see and hear how this is one of the built-in ones, how Microsoft defines these. So it's going to tell you what it considers a low, a medium, or a high confidence. They use numbers like 65 and lower is low, 65 to 75 is medium, 85, I haven't got that quite right, 85 and up is high. And it even gives you the keywords it looks for. I work with companies where this isn't accurate enough. They've spent a lot of time customizing the built-in Canada SIN to add way more keywords to get that accuracy up. So just a word of warning. Okay, so OCR, there's a couple of different places you can enable this. Both are pay-as-you-go features. First off, actually I went to the wrong tab. If you go into org settings on the M365 Admin Center, you will scroll down to a pay-as-you-go service. There's a bunch of things that are pay-as-you-go. OCR is one of them. So you are required to connect this OCR, well, all of these services to an Azure subscription for billing. So I have done that already. So my service is active. You'll have a link to go and set that up if you haven't set this up yet. Once you do that, you get a whole bunch of features in here. We're focusing on OCR. It's a document processing service, and you can turn this on for controlled locations. You can see there's SharePoint and OneDrive in here. Within SharePoint, you can configure it for all of your sites or be very prescriptive on which sites you want. A couple of organizations I work with, they're very prescriptive because there's usually some sites that deal with a lot of sensitive content that happens to be in images, sites that deal with customer information, for instance. So I can see where you would want to limit that. So I've got a couple of sites that I'm going to use associated in here. So any image content I put up there is going to be scanned. And this is like any other pay-as-you-go service. You can monitor your usage and your costs inside Azure Cost Management. On the Purview side, I can go and enable this for Purview alternatively. And I would want perhaps to do that if I want to be able to deploy some of my Purview controls and on some of these locations. And you can see it can cover Exchange email. The other document processing side couldn't. This can cover Teams chat and channel messages and even endpoint devices. So whether you have your SharePoint sites defined in here or the other location, DLP will still work if you're targeting that location, but there's other options available here. This also requires you to hook it up to Azure, to your Azure subscription. Before you turn this on, you can estimate OCR scanning. Once you turn this on, you can no longer estimate. So I would recommend, if you're thinking about doing this and you have a sense of some SharePoint sites that might have a lot of content that has sensitive images in there, that you should try an estimate to see how much that might cost you. But word of caution is once you turn this on, you can't estimate anymore, which is unfortunate.
So Joanne, I have a question.
Yeah.
So it's either like one here in Purview or to activate it, the OCR itself in the admin center, like either one or the other, or
either one or the other. Yes,
okay.
They both use the same pay-as-you-go service inside your Azure subscription.
Okay.
One is I would say more like SharePoint focused, but whether you scan content, if you have it enabled in the admin center, or you scan content by having the site listed here, Purview can work against both of them. It doesn't care. It actually, those OCR services update the exact same metadata inside SharePoint. So Purview doesn't care. You will see a difference in the metadata billing. It will bill, you'll see some of the billing going to Purview, some of the billing going to M365 is what it calls it. But at the end of the day, they're both scanning the content exactly the same.
Wouldn't it be like a charged twice? Like because it's scanning here is like at the same time?
No, they will not charge you twice, and they actually have some caching mechanisms built in. I mean, there's kind of 2 points to make about that. Even if you have the same site targeted on here, this side, and on the other side, they won't charge you twice for scanning the same image. No, they figured that out. And there's also a caching mechanism. Cache works a little bit different, like in Exchange. It's not, and everybody has a maybe some image that has some text in it. It's not going to keep rescanning that image. It does have some caching mechanisms in there, as well as on the endpoint.
It's good to know that they communicate and coordinate.
Yeah.
Like these.
Yes, it is.
Good.
That doesn't always happen. So yeah,
Exactly.
That's good.
Thanks.
Okay, so let's go into a SharePoint site. Okay, my site is called Legal Team Demo Pre-Baked. And I'm in a SharePoint library. I've got a couple folders because I was testing something, but I'm just going to show you before Sid created. I'll come back to that later. First of all, I've already put some content in here that I wanted to have scanned, as well as 2 documents that had no images in them to show that. A whole bunch of things have gone on here. First off, I want to talk about these image files, the 2 PNGs. You will see, first of all of these files, except for these 2, were were, except this and this, were scanned by OCR. I know these two weren't because they're just regular document files. There's no image in them. But you'll notice only the two image files have the extracted text column populated. I don't know why OCR service does that with SharePoint, but it's the only, even though the text is in fact extracted, it only shows it in the SharePoint column for image files. So it's going to show it for JPEGs, PNG, any image file. But do know that, like for this PDF, the content is still searchable. It's just in some hidden property that Microsoft doesn't expose. So I'm just going to go into this form. I can't even remember what's on here. Okay, so I'm going to do a search for method of communication, I guess. Something on this form. Make a typo. And there it is. So it definitely is in the search index. It's just not persisted here. So don't think because it's not there that it didn't get OCR'd. So you might be asking, well, how do I know if it's been OCR'd? So this is where a couple of tools can help. I'll maybe upload, I will show that in a minute, but I'm going to upload a few other documents here. So of course, this content is all searchable now. And that's where the magic happens. That's what Purview is using. It's using that extracted text to know and the classification information to know, oh, I need to maybe apply a sensitivity label, or I need to apply a DLP block icon. All of that stuff is going on here. You see these little red icons? That's a DLP, data loss prevention Purview policy that's looking for that legal case ID and blocking it from being shared externally. That's what that icon is. And it's consistent across all of those data types based on the content that it's scanned. Same with a retention label applied by the system account. That's the system doing it. It has knowledge now of that legal case ID being either in an image or the file itself and applying it, as well as a sensitivity label. There's a few missing here. The PNGs, in fact, because an auto labeling sensitivity label policy does not apply a label to an image file. So there's some gaps here. There's other ways to get a label on there, but an auto labeling policy isn't going to do it for you. So lots going on here. Let's upload some documents to see OCR in real time. So I'm going to upload. I've got a whole bunch of files ready for this demo. I'm going to pick generated image samples. Okay, so I've got this guy. Now, of course, I've seeded this for the demo, but you can see I've got a regular expression match in here, and I also have the word outside counsel, which I know was one of those keywords I had defined in my keyword list when I built the classifier inside Purview. So when I'm looking at this, when OCR scans it, it should be a high confidence match on that classifier. So I'll upload that one. Same with this receipt that I showed earlier in the deck. I'm going to try handwriting, see if it can detect that one, and just some random file, because I wanted to extract all of those images. So I'm going to do all of these, I guess. We don't need that one. Whoops. This. And hopefully I have unique names here. Yeah. So it's going to upload 4 images. So I just want to sit here for a little bit and see how long this takes. Now, actually going to sort this by modified so I can get them up to the top. These are all image files, so I'm expecting to see something pulling into that extracted text column. Pretty fast. Now, you'll notice the DLP icon isn't showing yet. I mean, it will show fairly quickly. We'll just hang on here The retention label won't show for likely days. Sensitivity label will probably show fairly quickly as well. Let's just sit here for a minute. Not too long, but okay,
But
you can start.
Since these are images, it's not going to show the sensitivity label, right?
Oh, thank you. Yes,
Right.
that's right.
Okay.
Okay, I'll upload another one that isn't a PNG so you can see that. You can see the DLP icon coming up. Okay, I'm going to upload some other file. I will do.
But one question, like
Yeah.
it's not going to show the sensitivity label, but it's going to be applied anyway. But it's not
No.
going to show.
No, it won't be applied.
It won't be applied at all.
No.
Okay.
I'm just trying to think what would here. Handwritten. Okay, let's try this one. And maybe this one. That one's written sideways. We'll see how they go. Okay. While we're waiting for this, I want to show you the two tools that I use to kind of look at what's going on behind the scenes. One is an add-in to Edge. You can also get it for Chrome. And the other is an open source tool actually written by Michael Spenson, who's from Microsoft engineering team years ago, but it's really helpful for using search. Okay, we'll let that sit. So I'm going to open up this browser tool. I'm going to go to the SharePoint tab. So I've installed this on my, yes, here's the warning, on my Edge browser. If I go to search, I've saved some queries. So I'm in the legal team demo pre-baked before sit created folder. So you can build queries, you can save them, run them. So I've got a search in here. Now this is where I'm not really going to explain SharePoint search, but this is TQL from SharePoint search. Nothing new here. So I'm looking for anything in the folder before sit created, which is where the parent link points to, and the path to this site. So if I run search, I'm going to get all of the files that are in this library, and I can pick one. So I'm going to pick one of these previously, actually, I'll take this Legal Eagle receipt right down here. Okay, and if I scroll down for this one file, here is all of the managed properties stored in the search schema for this file. Really important detail behind the scenes. And the piece I'm looking at, OWS. Yeah, it hasn't crawled it yet because I should see the metadata for the scanning in the media service metadata. So I'm going to go down to another image, legal case 1, which is right there. And I should see it here. Yeah, I do. So media service metadata. I will zoom in here. You can see a whole bunch of information is in here. What I want you to look at is this part here. Oops, sorry. Let me try this again. I want you to look at the billing information. This is what's telling you what is going to bill it for you or do the billing. It's under billed events. And you can see the additional data. It's got a source of M365. That's telling me that it's using the M365 admin. I got this site configured as one of the libraries I want scanned in the M365 admin center. If I also had this site in the Purview one, I would see two values there, compliance, comma, M365. but Microsoft makes it crystal clear in their documentation that they don't scan it twice, they don't bill you twice. They're just saying, we realize these two services are pointing here, we're scanning it for you. In addition, you can see down below this, where's my mouse? Come on. Lost my mouse. The word dump you can see below that billing information is the actual text it extracted out of that image. And that's kind of the most meaningful piece out of there. So that's a way of you knowing where the billing is coming from. Another tool I like to use is called the SharePoint search query tool. And I've used this for years. There's a lot going on here, but you can run queries in here to see the behind the scenes value of all of these pieces of metadata. This is really the only way you can do that. You know, end users use the search box and it gets results. But if you need to do any deep analysis on why are they getting what they're getting, or if you're trying to build any kind of custom search solution, you need some other tool. So this, you can run a query, you can put your query up here, and you're going to get the results over here as well, and you can drill in and look at all of the metadata. So it's both are helpful. I kind of prefer the developer tool add-in, but both will show you the information behind the scenes. Thank you for sharing that, Samir. Okay, what else was I going to show you here? Okay, let's go back. Let's close this for now and go back in here. Okay, so first of all, I can see the highly confidential sensitivity label was applied to those two PDFs. I don't know how long that took, but it wasn't that long. So that's from, I'm going to show you that, auto labeling policy. So other than me just adding the files to this SharePoint site, I didn't open those files. I didn't do anything like that. I didn't manually set that label. It just picked it up and applied that label because it knows there's a match on that sensitive information type, the legal case ID. So if I were to open this, I should see it in there. Yeah, so it picked up my printing. It doesn't always. Sometimes if I'm sloppy in my printing and maybe it perceives there's a space between LM and the dash, that's not a match on the regular expression. And this is where you have to spend a fair amount of time getting your regular expression robust enough to allow for maybe some of those nuances that you're going to see in the real world. Maybe there'd be a lower confidence if there wasn't a match, if there was an extra space in there or something. Okay, I see DLP hasn't done its thing there yet. Can't explain that. I'm assuming eventually it will show the DLP icon. And the retention label definitely won't show there until, well, until days likely. What else can I show you in here? Okay, I want to go over and show you the Purview side of some of these things on how I configure them to look for matches on here. So, you know, files are blocked. So if I try to share this, I can't. If I sent this to somebody outside of the organization now, because it has a highly confidential label that is encrypted to just my organization, even if it got sent to them, they couldn't open it because it's they don't have permission to open that. So there's a whole bunch of things that now we can act on this content in kind of an intelligent manner to really protect this data and retain this data for the appropriate amount. So if I flip over to Purview, DLP, I've got the top 3 policies I have in here, one for Exchange, one for SharePoint, one for Exchange, and one for Teams chat. So I'm going to look at this one first. Now, all of these policies in Purview take a while, varying lengths of time to actually propagate down to every user, every mailbox. Okay, so for that reason alone, this all needed to be set up in advance. Okay, so not really realistic, but for this demo, I'm targeting only 2 sites. One is the pre-baked site we're in, and then I did another one just for good measure. But I'm targeting only those 2 sites in this policy. And I have a rule. And my rule is I am looking now for my custom sensitive information type, legal case ID. You can see here's the confidence. So this is the consumption side of my sensitive information type. I'm saying I want there to be a high confidence match on the legal case ID as a condition. And I want there to be from 1 to any. So you can change this. Maybe I'd want to have more than 10, or from 1 to 10, and then do something different if it's over that. So there's lots of different ways you can do it. But for this demo, I've said anytime you see at least 1 high confidence legal case ID, then I want you to block everyone. That's where the red icon comes through. And I want to have a policy tip that shows this pertains to a legal matter and should not be shared outside of our organization unless a business reason is given, and I'm going to allow the user to override. I'm going to flip back to SharePoint and show you where you see that. Right here. Okay, so I'm going to select one of these guys that has that icon on it and look at the detail. Okay, this is DLP right here. I click View Policy Tip. This is that policy tip I just showed in the DLP policy. This pertains to a legal matter and should not be shared outside of our organization. I've allowed an override. So I can go in here and I can override this and say, I want to do it anyway, which is a terrible reason. So policy overridden. Okay, you can see, I'm going to refresh this. Okay, so the icon's gone, so I could share it now. But if I share it, there's a highly confidential label, so that wouldn't, depending on who I wanted to share it with, that wouldn't work out so well. But that's where that DLP policy tip shows, solely based on there being a high confidence match on a legal case ID in this file. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Somebody's asking me, is auto labeling on the PDF service side auto labeling as you did not open the file? Yes. Or was it labeled? No, it was on service side, which I haven't shown that yet, but it was a service side auto labeling policy that applied that highly confidential label. So I will show that next. What I want to show, I'm just going to end up on DLP here. I want to show what this looks like. All of these activities are being audited. So if I go to the activity log, I think I have that. Not Data Explorer. I'm going to go to the activity log in, let's go this way. So in Activity Explorer, I expect me to see activities for what was just uploaded into SharePoint. Okay, so there's a bunch going on in here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter this activity list. This is pulling from the Unified Audit Log. I'm going to look for DLP rule matched, just to lighten things up a little bit in here. So hopefully it's had time to come in here, and sure enough it has. So I can see a bunch of rule matches up in the top on the legal team demo pre-baked site. There it is. So if I were to select one of these guys, I can see all kinds of information. This is what DLP found about this file and why that rule matched. So it did match on the legal case ID, and it even goes and says how many occurrences of that sensitive information type did it find? What is in this case, the regular expression and the surrounding text around it. So it's very contextual on what it's looking for to determine in the moment, do I need to, is this a match on this DLP rule? So if I want to view the alert,
Joanne, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that count which you're showing, or that activity alert which you were showing earlier, that was for that specific instance when that scan ran, and it found that these are the sensitive info types, and this many types are counted under that specific classifier kind of thing.
It's not really when the scan ran. It's when the DLP policy looked at the content, and it detected from the classification details that it was previously scanned that, oh, there's actually two matches for this SIT, two high confidence matches of that SIT in this file.
Perfect.
So DLP looks at that search index and the classification details that are in there.
So, and that happens once, or that keep happening every specific time interval? Or whenever I try to do something on that specific labeled document or something?
It's basically when content is, when new content is added, it's scanned. When content is changed, it's rescanned. I mean, there's a few, OCR tries to be smart about it. If you have a Word document and you have some images in there, but all you change is text, it's not going to re-OCR scan that file for the cost side of it, but it definitely updates the entry inside of the search index. And then DLP acts accordingly. It acts on the freshness of that search index. So if a good example is, maybe I go into that same document and I change it and I remove the sensitive information from it, that DLP icon, DLP is going to look at that content and remove the icon because it's no longer sensitive. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I wanted to show something here. So, okay, so a whole bunch of information about this. If I go into the exact file, there's some interesting metadata over here I wanted to show. I think it's under here, metadata. Yeah. You can see SIT detected sensitive information type. So this is saying, this is why I put that DLP icon on there. I found the legal case ID confidence 85. That's telling me that's a high confidence match. And then I found two of them, count of two, and then it's got, you know, the actual ID of that classifier. And even the surrounding characters down here. Can you guys see that? It's kind of, yeah. So there's just a ton of information going on. Now, this classification information, I want you to keep this in the back of your mind. This is what can get out of date on some of your really old historical legacy content. And this is why the on-demand classification feature was introduced. I'll show that at the end because you know, if you had thousands of SharePoint sites and you created a new custom sensitive information type today, Microsoft isn't going to go back and retroactively reclassify all of your legacy content and look for where that new classifier is. You have to update this kind of information, the SIT detected and all that. It's going to require a reclassification. Okay, so I'm going to end off with on-demand classification, which is what that is covering, but I'll come back to that in a bit. So lots of information in here. my hope in showing this is you can kind of see how some of these products tie together and how important you getting the definition of your classifier correct at the front means everything when it comes to how good your DLP actions are and how accurate your sensitivity label and retention label applications can be. Okay, so now I'm going to go over to somebody asked a question about the sensitivity label. So the fact that that highly confidential label was applied to that item is there's a couple things going on there. First, I want to show you the client side of applying a sensitivity label. Sorry, I'm just looking for my screen. Where am I here? Legal team demo pre-baked. Okay, if I create a new Word document, it doesn't even have to be in an image. And I say, this is for the settlement for LM-ON 26, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'm just going to let that sit for a minute. What I'm expecting to happen, okay, is two things. This is a DLP policy tip. DLP is running always when you're creating a new content and changing content. It's detected a match, a high confidence match on what I put in there, and it's saying, oh, sorry, this is not DLP up top. This is client side sensitivity label is telling me I recommend a highly confidential label. Okay, so I'm going to show how this is set up, but it's detected in the moment that I've done that. So I can select change now, and you know, I've got some watermarking. If you go to up here and I click that, that's the sensitivity label applied to this file, and that's the description I have for it. So it detects in the moment, client side, that I've got a match on that classifier. Where that is done is, oh, I've got things hidden under this thing. Oh my goodness. I'm going over to information protection, and I'm going to look at the definition of that sensitivity label, highly confidential. Okay, not going to go through this. There's a whole bunch of settings for sensitivity label, a priority. I want to get to the setting. This is where I set the watermarking. There's permissions you set in there, header, footer. Okay, this is auto labeling for files and emails, client side. So as users are working in it. And I've got a whole bunch of conditions. You can see here, any of these. So if there's a high confidence match on a credit card number or a legal case ID, or any of these, 6 to any of those Canada SITs or a US SIT, or tradable classifier, a whole bunch of conditions. If you see any of those things, detect any of those things in the content, recommend the user applies this label and give them this message, which is exactly the message I saw when I was editing that document, that Word document. Okay, so that's client side auto apply. But that only catches net new and change documents. So if I went into an existing document that didn't have that information and then I added it after the fact, this same message would appear. But what about your legacy content? Now, I'm not talking about old historical, not classified content yet, but legacy content that you know has legal case IDs out there, and you want a highly confidential label to be applied to them too, which is exactly what I'm showing in this late demo pre-baked environment. So that's done not in the label definition, but in an auto labeling policy. And you typically need both. Usually you start with client side to make sure you're fairly confident in your rules, and then you can move over to doing it with the auto labeling policy. Because depending on the type of label you're doing, highly confidential in this case is an encrypting sensitivity label, you're going to encrypt potentially a lot of content. So you want to be pretty confident in this. Starting in simulation mode is what you're going to do here to see what in fact is going to match all of your conditions. So I've ran mine in simulation. You're forced to do that. And then I've enabled it because I wanted it to be there for you to see it. So, but I'm going to edit this and you can see how I set this up. So I'm going to edit this policy. So you pick the label you want to apply, one and only one label. Skipping over this. And then you pick, okay, where do you want this label to apply? I pick those same two sites. And you configure different rules for different locations. So for exchange, I'm saying look for a high confidence match, at least one on that legal case ID. That's it. On the SharePoint side, same thing. Pretty simple rule. There's a whole priority thing with sensitivity labels, whether it'll overwrite an existing label or not. So kind of tangential to the topic of this today, but there's some other settings in here you can do, which I'm saying here, replace a label if it's already labeled, if this is higher priority. Okay, so every time you do this, you're forced to run it in simulation mode. So I'm going to cancel this. Confirm. What I want to show you, I'm going to go back to Activity Explorer, and I want to show you how the existing items in that pre-baked site were labeled with this auto labeling policy. So I'm going to filter this instead on label applied. By label applied, it's both sensitivity and retention. They don't differentiate the two in here. And what is this called? There's actually a user for this. I think this is what it is. Fingers. I got it wrong. Okay, I'm going to scrap that. Oh, it got rid of all of it. Okay. Label applied. Get rid of DLP. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring in some more information here. I'm going to bring in the sensitivity label and the retention label, and also the sensitive information type, maybe the count, the metadata. So I'm going to see a whole bunch of information here. Auto labeling policy is the name of the user. It's going to catch anything that applies the label, even if you've manually done it. So I'm going to filter this user on auto labeling policy. I thought that's what I did before, but I probably typed it wrong. Okay, so I can see a whole bunch of things going on in the back end. Sensitivity label and why it applied it. So if I click on this sit, in this particular file over here, you can see it found matches, a high confidence match, 2 of them, and so on and so forth. On the images, why did it do that? Oh, on Exchange. Okay. I haven't showed Exchange yet. Legal case 1. These are all Exchange. On the, I'm just going to scroll down here. I'm just trying to figure out the date today. Okay. I don't know why those SharePoint ones aren't showing. I'm going to get rid of this. Let's do a search on SharePoint. How are we doing for time? Ooh, okay, we're almost at the end. Okay, so you can see both the sensitivity label and the retention label applied by auto labeling policies. And basically this is kind of an audit trail. If you're wondering, why something got applied, you can kind of do the back end kind of research on that. On the retention label side, I think somebody asked a question. I'm just going to very quickly show that was done. Again, this is service side only. You can't really do a client side auto apply with retention. If I do a search on policy for legal, on this policy, I'm going to give it a similar condition. You give it a name. I'm going to apply it to content that contains sensitive information. Again, the same rule. For this demo, I'm picking those same pre-baked groups. And then I pick the retention label. And that's exactly what was applied. This is the one that takes up to 7 days for it to apply, not immediate. What I do want to show you is in Explore, Data Explorer. This is a not up to date, but a fairly good snapshot in time. Takes a couple days to update this on what's going on across your environment. So if I were to filter this list on legal, I can see I can filter on SITs, retention labels, trainable classifiers, sensitivity labels. If I just hone in on my legal case ID, I can see it's applied to a whole bunch of different locations. And you can drill in down to the file level, given the right permissions, and see right inside the files and where the matches are. Now, where the problem comes in is if you don't think these numbers are right, like maybe you think, well, I think we have thousands of legal case IDs across our SharePoint site. How come they aren't showing in here? The odds are the classification details for all those legacy files aren't up to date. They're not fresh. They don't have the legal case ID. Certainly, if you built it custom, didn't exist maybe when all those files were migrated into SharePoint. So there's a bit of a disconnect there. Now, you can re-index all of those SharePoint sites, but you don't really control. It's a performance hit, first of all, and you don't control how long that takes or when it happens. Microsoft's introduced the on-demand classification, so you can control it. So I'm going to show that because I think it's important to know about this and know some of the things that you might want to do in here. Under information protection classifiers, you can see on-demand classification. Now you can run this in an estimation mode without costing a single cent, which I have done for a site called Scan the Policy Pile. Actually, I'm going to do a new scan to show you how you do this. So demo scan. Of course it is. Okay, so you can be very selective on what you're doing here. Customers I've worked with that have done this are extremely selective because this is going to cost you. Every time you have to reclassify your data, it costs. So, you could do them all, but I probably wouldn't. I'll just go on here. For time classifiers, it's going to look for all the classifiers, which there's hundreds of them, including built-in and custom. If you want to be very specific, you might just want to reclassify everything for the legal case ID. You could do that. That's going to save you some time. I don't know if it saves money. I asked that question to Microsoft and I didn't get an answer back. I don't know, but it certainly will save time. So let's say you just pick that one. You can pick a time of how far back you want to scan. and file extensions, which is another good one. So maybe you'll notice what is missing by this list is images. Images are not reclassified. The combination of OCRing, so you need to OCR your images. After you build your custom classifier, you need to re-OCR your images so it can pick up that information, okay? On-demand classification doesn't do that. I've been told that that's kind of on the roadmap, but those two things don't happen at the same time. So you can see the file types that it can scan, Office docs, of course, PDFs, a whole bunch of other files. So do that if you want to make it go quicker. Also file size, review and submit. So what it happens is it does an estimation first. And the reason it does that is it's telling you this is how much this is going to cost. So this is a trivial site. So, you know, this amount is nothing. But I mean, this can be up in the thousands. So does it cost you a cent to estimate? So I would do this first. And then if you're happy with it, then you can click the start classification and you'll actually be billed. What it's doing behind the scenes is it's updating that classification information. That's what DLP uses. That's what sensitivity label and retention label auto apply, service side auto apply use as well. So that's kind of how it all fits together. And that's probably long enough. I have a bunch of more I could show, but I think that was a lot of talking. Is there any questions that I didn't address?
There is a question.
Okay.
So from, I don't know, I messed up the name. Gijashu?
Jigyashu.
Jigyashu. All right. Thanks, Samir. So he says, I do not think you cannot let your users delete documents that were marked by labels. They can delete it with the retention. Sorry, the question is above. By Kvan. All right. So if we configure a retention policy based on sensitivity labels, there is usually a delay before the retention settings fully take effect and start preventing deletion. During that time window, what happens if a user deletes the file? Is there any way to prevent users from deleting the file before the retention protection becomes active?
No, not that I know of. No. If all you have is, if there's no retention control in place, i.e. there's no retention policy on that same site, covering all of the content within the site, and if you don't have that and you don't have, you know, you have your auto apply retention label policy, but it hasn't yet applied, then no, there's nothing preventing an end user from selecting that document and deleting it. It'll go in the recycle bin. It won't go in the PHL or the preservation hold library or anything. So yeah, it's a gap.
So permissions then.
Permissions?
Yeah, they have to limit permissions to prevent users, like set them as read only or something. Right?
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. So I have a quick question. I know in the starting of the call, you mentioned about that auto labeling policy can be applied to, apply to JPG or that PNG thing, right?
Yeah.
Just wondering, does it mean like people like apply it manually, or it doesn't apply at all?
Well, I'm going to open up File Explorer. For non-Office file types and PDFs and non-PDFs, so I'm going to, have I synced this site? I'm just going to show you how to do it. What did I call it? Sorry, you're looking at all my backstage here. I probably shouldn't be showing you that. I'll get off of the sharing for a moment. Yeah. Pre-baked. Okay, here we go. Okay. So I'm just going to show. Okay, so it is. Legal case 1 is image, likely. That was one of them, right? I'm just going to go open up the SharePoint site here just to make sure. before legal case number 1 as image does not have a sensitivity label. Right, that. So there is a Microsoft Information Protection client that must be pushed out to staff. And once they do, they will see an option in Explorer to apply a sensitivity label with Purview.
This is cool. Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Okay, it opens up a labeler. You're going to see the exact same sensitivity labels that are published to me as a user, because you publish labels to users, which I see here, and I can manually apply it here. Apply. What you're going to notice, this was a PNG file.
Mm-hmm.
I close that. Look at the extension is now PPNG, means protected PNG. If I were to open this, it's not going to open up in Photoshop or anything anymore. It's going to open up in the information protection viewer because it understands encryption. And so it realizes there's an encrypting sensitivity label on that, and so it opens it up in this viewer. You can also programmatically apply sensitivity label, but the auto labeling policy is not going to do it when it's sitting in SharePoint. Yeah, and you can also do this with an MPIP scanner to apply based on sensitive information type. So there's a few other ways you can do it. You're just not going to see that label inside of SharePoint.
Perfect. Thank you, Joanne. I appreciate it. Yeah.
There is a question by Candice. She says, what do you recommend us to do to get started protecting sensitive data, like baby steps?
I would say start with your classifiers, because that is the underpinning for everything. So look at Data Explorer. I'm just gonna go back there. So work with, I don't know if you're a Purview admin yourself, but it is really important to look at, where is it now? These classifiers and inside Data Explorer. Every tenant comes with 300 plus built-in sensitive information types, a bunch of trainable classifiers. They're free for you to use, but and sometimes they're sufficient. They're things like credit card number and that kind of thing. But you need to see the matches that are in your organization. So here they all are up here. You can see there's a whole bunch of them. I would go through and see like where are the credit card numbers in your tenant, and then spend some time increasing the accuracy on all of these classifiers. Every single organization I've worked with that have spent some time on this, it has paid off down the road when they're applying Purview data loss prevention policies and trying to automate the application of sensitivity labels. It pays off in the long run. That would be a good place to start. DLP is also quite a good place to start inside Purview. You can, in alert mode, you can just set up some policies so it actually doesn't encumber, or it's not visible to the end user at all, but there will be alerts generated in the back end, and you can see what end users are doing. Maybe they're sending stuff externally to your organization that they shouldn't be. So, you know, there's some tooling in the back on Purview that you can have insight on what's going on actually without affecting an end user at all. I would say those are some kind of good places to start. Definitely don't start with auto labeling at scale, server-side auto labeling. That is kind of a more advanced capability once you're pretty confident that you have your classifiers and all of your rules right, because it has far-reaching effects, particularly if some of those labels apply encryption.
Thanks,
Yep,
Joanne.
I think K-Man, K1 having a question.
Thank you, guys. Hello, Joanne. It's nice to meet you again.
Nice to meet you too.
My question is about my previous role. We couldn't find an answer and raise a ticket with Microsoft. The question or the issue was we had a bunch of about 5,000 sites to archive. And it turns out that the retention label doesn't work. If there is a match in those sites, the retention doesn't work, despite that I think the Microsoft documentation says it's supposed to work. So my question is, do you know if we have like an archive site in the Microsoft 365 archive, when you have like a new blade in the under active sites, you have archived site as well. Does retention label, basically retention, start to work if there is a match in the archive site?
I missed the first part of your question, but are you asking if you have an auto apply retention label policy, and you target all of your sites, let's say, and some of those sites are archive sites, are you asking if that retention label will be applied to matching content on the archive site?
Yes, if there is yes, exactly. If there is a match with the retention.
Okay. I've never tried it. Anything I've never tried, I lack confidence in saying it will absolutely work. I certainly know Microsoft says if there's labels on there already, they will continue to honor whatever retention label settings you have. But I'm not sure if an auto apply label policy will label net, like content that's not labeled in an archive site. Nikki, perhaps you know that, but I've not tested it, so I wouldn't feel confident. Was that your question?
Yes, yes, it was.
I have to test it. Nikki also made a comment in here. You cannot customize the out of the box sensitive information types. These you have to clone them and then create a custom version of them. So let's say you wanted to customize, like I was saying before, the Canada social insurance number. You would just copy it. I'll just pick one of these here. Let's say I want to do this one. Oh no, you would go into here, pick your sensitive information type and basically clone it by doing a copy. You can't edit these out of the box ones. But remember, as soon as you create a custom classifier, it doesn't retroactively go back and reclassify all of your legacy content with that new custom definition. Yeah. Yeah, you copy it.
Question by Eric. He says, where can I check if one policy conflicts with another? Is it manual or is there a report that indicates this?
There's actually, it probably depends what policy you're talking about, but there is a new DLP, I think it's in preview, a DLP overview report where it's going to list all of your policies and the workload locations they're published against and the rules and that kind of thing. That's the best I know of in an automated fashion. Yeah. Otherwise, it is checking and downloading your own different exports of all of your policies. And as you can see, you can get a lot of DLP policies in a tenant. There's naming standards I like is to kind of keep them fairly granular if you can, keep Exchange separate. So over time, you get an awful lot of policies. Have a really good naming convention from the get-go, because you could see where you see the rules and the policy names, you see them inside Activity Explorer. So make them make sense. So when you're looking, you can kind of tell, oh yeah, I see where this is coming from.
Cool.
Perfect.
The event says you're a gem to the community, Joanne.
Oh, well, thank you.
100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, there's some great conversations going on in the chat. So hopefully everyone kind of got a good idea for OCR and some of the Purview stuff and how those two worlds work together.
We now know how hard it is, so we appreciate more what you do, Joanne.
I did
Definitely.
some serious praying to the demo gods these last 2 weeks, I have to tell you. I didn't quite get to everything, but I think I hit the big pieces anyway.
Yep. That was awesome.
No, that's it. Yeah, absolutely incredible.